The year of our Lord 2020, Kendrick Lamar Duckworth performed at a football game. It was supposed to be a really big, important football game, but one team apparently forgot how to play and the other team just swept the game. So the game was actually kind of boring. But at the halftime show, we got to see, and when I say we, the last numbers I saw were 135 million people at least got to see a celebration of Black joy and culture. That is a rare thing. Often we don't celebrate the African American community unless it's through looking at their pain, their strife. But we got to see their joy, their celebration, and also have an important message delivered. So, on this third quarter moon of the via-Positiva, let's discuss celebrating Black joy and the role that it plays in sustaining justice as we walk together down creation's paths. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christo-pagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christo-pagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
If I could have done a David Attenborough impersonation, that's how I would have done the intro, because all I can hear is Curtis King talking about his National Geographic documentaries. I'm not going to explain the joke. If you know, you know. Shout out to Curtis King, who is just doing some phenomenal work right now. But yeah, as we're celebrating Black History Month here during this important period of history, as well as we're going through our Druidry 101 series, we wanted to really highlight Black joy, because it's not something that we as the Caucasian folk, the white folk, get to experience all that often, because entertainment that is crafted for those of us on this side of the unfortunate national divide, we're generally only given Roots or 7 Years a Slave or Beloved or The Color Purple, stories of suffering, stories of pain, stories of just abject sorrow and mourning. Those stories are important to tell. It is important to understand the history of racism in this country. It is important for us to understand the systemic racism that's continuing to go on in this country. But when you see an entire group of people as nothing but tragedy, it clouds the way you think about them. It's really important for us to see their lives when they're filled with joy, with wonder, with awe, which is, after all, what the via-Positiva is all about. And so, yeah, we're going to be talking about that halftime show, which is up on YouTube. And I assume people have seen it because the millions and millions of views that are on that video alone, not mentioned, what was it? 135 million people watched it live. And that's just television sets watched it live. We know there were a lot of watch parties with a lot of people. So like the actual number is so much higher than that. We also know of a few concerts that stopped to air the halftime show in the middle of the concert. So stadiums of people also saw it. I mean, it's hard to explain exactly how big of an event this is, but we're getting into all that in a second. But before we do, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever the app is you're listening to us on. We do original Christo-pagan and Druid episodes 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And we're currently in the middle of our Druidcraft 101 series, where we're helping people discover the magic of everyday life and learn how to re-enchant their own lives, which is so important. All right, let's just get into it.
I really liked that you started with the point of just being mindful of reminiscing or wallowing in the sorrow and suffering of another group when trying to understand or get into another culture. From the gay community, I can really empathize, just because a lot of people, their first forays in or what they talk about is the Lonely Hearts Club, Brokeback Mountain, all these movies of suffering and slow death. And yes, our culture definitely has those struggles and those sufferings and tragedies in them, but they don't define us. They are not all we are. And it's so important to remember to celebrate those joyful moments.
Yeah, mainstream audiences don't know anything about like Billy Madison's first Hollywood kiss or A Touch of Pink or Were the World Mine or any of the just celebrations of queer community. This is a problem that we have, especially here in the United States. And I'm limiting a lot of my thoughts and opinions to the United States because it's where I live. And I don't want to speak for other countries and cultures because I am not a part of them. But this is what we do with minority representation in this country for the most part, where we have the tragic Indian story or all of the sad Indian merch that you can still find prevalently in stores in this country. We don't often have stories of just life on the res and just the joy of regular everyday life, which is why it's so rare when something like that actually breaks through. I mean, we just had Under the Flower Moon, an amazing movie, which again, important story to tell. It's a historical event. It's a historical tragedy that happened around here where we live. But it, again, is focusing on the pain and suffering of this minority community.
Whereas, like, the most recent Predator movie, Prey, it's fiction, but at least it's celebratory, like, in that way,
And,
as much
and
as you
the
can have in a kind of horror slash science fiction
and I've
movie.
watched it a few times, and I've come to the personal opinion the best of the Predator movies. But
Yeah.
you know, we like watching as a culture. We like watching people fight, and we like watching people suffer, and especially when we're supposed to have empathy for anybody who is different from us, we want stories about them suffering or fighting.
There's nothing
And
wrong with that as a foray in. That can't be it. As we teach about the 4 paths, the via negativa isn't all 4 paths.
and you have to have all of them. That's why I wanted to really highlight the Super Bowl performance, and because watching the reaction to it, I know our immediate reaction to it was astounded at how well choreographed it was, how well filmed it was, the new verse that he did to introduce the performance, the way that they edited the other songs to fit into the flow of the story, the inclusion of Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam. And trust me, I would love nothing more than to go into all the symbolism, meaning, and metaphor that
Layers.
layers on layers on layers. And there are a lot of wonderful channels that have been doing that. And I highly recommend that you go and seek that out if that's something you're interested in. The one thing that has struck me hardest is seeing how many people are upset at Serena Williams for joyously dancing in this performance. Yes, she was crip walking. Yes, that's what she was doing. But the joy in her while she was doing that, the joy that SZA had in being on this huge stage, the joy on Mustard's face when I'm still trying to figure out how he got on stage as many times as I've watched that performance. Like, where did Mustard come from? They're out in the middle of a field. He's wearing a bright yellow jacket. He should be visible in the crowd before he just pops up. But I can't. I'm still trying to find him. But the
I've got
exuberance,
a head canon of him. He was sitting up in the box seat just when it started. It was just like so excited. He just got moved and jumped up and started running from the beginning. And it just took him that long to get down onto the field and out.
we
I
know
just
from the
happened to not see him moving down there.
we know from the interview with Big Boy that that was like everything in the performance was all planned out.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. I think in reality he was probably in with the crew that was brought in underneath the car.
I expected attacks on the messaging because this was a very prophetic performance. I mean, he literally starts off on the hood of a GNX car calling down God's judgment on the people and country that oppresses other people. Like, that's literally how it starts with this original voice that verse that is, we don't know if it's part of a song. It's being referred to as bodies because of that line, bodies on bodies on bodies on bodies in there. But it starts with that very prophetic moment. It has, but anticipated, it anticipated this backlash in having Uncle Sam, played by Samuel L. Jackson, say all of the things did end up getting said about it in backlash. Again, I expected a lot of the attacks on this to be about the messaging, and they're doing everything in their power not to even mention the message. Like, this was a call out of the state of the nation, the state of the world, the state of American culture in such a profound and powerful way. The way verses were picked from Luther and from All the Stars, were very intentional for this moment. For everybody who's trying to say that this was a performance about one Canadian superstar, he gets mentioned once towards the end. And the reason he gets mentioned there is because he's part of the problem. He's a footnote on this performance. So much of this performance is joy, starting with just the joy of Squabble Up at the beginning, just
Yeah.
watching those dancers just going for it and just the exuberance of it all the way through to I've watched a lot of Kendrick Lamar performances, and to see him smile and really being able to enjoy himself in this while delivering this very heavy message and seeing that that's what a lot of the attacks are against it. Like, I shouldn't be surprised because I know the country that I live in. I know the kinds of people and voices that are platformed in the country that I live in. But this is where we really need to watch our own place in this conversation and start checking our privilege because we wouldn't have complained about them being joyous, and we didn't when Usher was performing. We didn't complain with any of the other performances that were just purely joyous that have happened in the past. Is that because there were only black bodies on stage? And I think it is. I think it is. It's because he didn't pander. He didn't play what I'm tired of this. He didn't play the hits. He played
Yeah.
DNA. DNA has gone double diamond. It's the only rap song in history to go double diamond. You can't get a bigger hit than that. That's 20 million units sold. Like, you can't get a bigger hit than that. It's the biggest rap song, and Not Like Us will probably eventually eclipse it, but it hasn't yet. He did play the hits. He may not have played the hits that you wanted. He may not have played the hits that would have let you relax and be calm. He played the songs that he wanted to play in this moment of sheer celebration. When you start really interrogating a lot of the reaction to this, it's one, a distraction tool where people are trying to keep us from seeing the message. And I will say this right now. Let me know in the comments if you actually want us to do like a Christopagan Druid reading of the performance, because I would love to do that. But I want to hear from y'all to know if y'all
Yeah.
want that from us. But attacking these joyful moments, because they're the parts that they're attacking are the parts that Uncle Sam said that they would attack. The squabble up at the very beginning, very joyous moment. They're attacking the dancing towards the end, especially with mustard and everything, the TV off moments. They're attacking that a lot. And they're attacking, and I find this very interesting, the man in the garden moment, because it's the root, it's what roots this into what it is. That man in a garden moment, all the dancers on the stage, if you haven't seen it, are dressed in red, white, and blue. Super Bowl, right? America's gay. Everyone, all the dancers are dressed in red, white, and blue until you get to Man in the Garden. Now, we've done an entire episode on the song Man in the Garden. That's our We Deserve It All episode. So if you've not listened to that one, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it because that's scripture. But he does a different version of it with a doo-wop, more doo-wop than beat background to it. And all of the dancers are in white. If you look as he's heading over, it's raining on his way there. And a lot of people have noticed this is him with the angels. He's at a cemetery. That's the garden. And it's this grounded moment in the middle of everything. And that's the other part that people are really attacking because nobody wants their own face shown to them. Because the part of Man of the Garden that he picked is the whole realize that we need to say that we deserve it all, but we also need to ask ourselves, why do we deserve the greatest
What
of all time?
what have we done to
Yeah.
actually, because it's one thing to say, "I deserve it all." It's another thing to be like, "But I did X, Y, and Z," versus, "Well, I didn't do anything." Well, then why do you deserve it all? Maybe you should get up and do something.
And I think we really need to interrogate ourselves as a culture anytime we are attacking a group of people for being happy.
It's it goes to the one of those simple things I learned a long time ago. When somebody is in an indefensible position, they go on the attack. And the
Yep.
thing that they attack is things, the fluffery. So they'll attack somebody for their joy. They'll say, "Oh, they're smiling too much. Oh, they laughed too much." They don't attack on substance because they don't have anything to stand on when it comes to substance. This is where, it really helps to break it down and look at things as in terms of what are you actually fighting against? Because something like that, that is it's referred to as a paper tiger because it's all roar and no bite. It is a strong breeze with some fog in it. That's an illusion that makes you think it's a nasty ghost come to attack you, and really it's just going to wash right over you. And it's also breaking it down and realizing the principalities and powers at play. Those are the things you're actually fighting against. That was one of the things that was so powerful in this is the whole beef was just a distraction part, and Kendrick saw that. Kendrick knew that going into it. The principality power that Kendrick is fighting against is this injustice, the system of oppression, the system that tells
you're trying to take meaning away from us. You're
yeah,
trying to take
right?
something that's meaningful and make it meaningless. You are trying to recuperate our art.
Yeah, and that was the thing that was so powerful in that whole performance was they were trying to do their art their way. They were told by Uncle Sam, "No, no, no, you have to do it like this." So they started to comply a bit. They
That's
were
what some
humble.
that America wants. They want it nice and calm.
And they said and that struggle against the power and principality, that in there is just so powerful. The stepping up and going, "But no, America really wants this. This
No,
is
well, no.
r"
Wait, what was
well, it's
Kendrick's actual response to that? America wants it nice. They want it calm. It's not the immediate line that follows, but it's I think the second or third line that follows. 40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than the music.
yeah, yeah, which is also the whole, like, well, we kept doing the compliance, man in the garden follows, like, you know, but so many of our own are being buried, being murdered in the streets.
Which is followed by Peekaboo, which if you know, you know. I'm not going to get into all that, but
Yeah,
Peekaboo on the X, where only 3 of the arms of the X have anything going on, either filled with people or empty of people. If you want more on the symbolism, there are a lot of other places talking about it, but it really ties into that. But there's still the joy. There's
there's
still the
still the
joy.
joy.
And this is
This
where you
whole
can really find out your relationship to any of the ethnic minorities, religious minorities, gender minorities, sexual minorities that exist around you. Just close your eyes, not if you're driving, but close your eyes and think about important moments regarding that group. What are they? Are they just pain? Are they just sorrow? Are they just tragedy? Are they? Because you'll learn a lot about your actual relationship with any of these groups when you start interrogating those questions. What is it that you think about? What comes to mind when you start thinking about that group of people? Because I'm just going to say this: you've not seen person's true face unless you've seen them both at their darkest moment and at their brightest. And if you're not looking at or for their brightest moments, you're not seeing them. You've categorized them into a box that allows you to pity them. And pity is a pale, pale imitation of compassion.
this
True
is the thing that was
liberation, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead. True liberation.
True liberation, true justice, true camaraderie comes from being there at people's highest points, their lowest points, and all the points in between. And that's where we have to really interrogate ourselves. When you think of the Black community in the United States, can you think of moments of joy? What moments of joy are you thinking of? Really interrogate that, because if all that's coming to mind are the dark moments, you need to be careful that you're not falling into the pity trap, because the pity trap is dangerous for you and your relationship with that community. Because we pity people we look down on. We have compassion with people that are on our level. And it's really important for us to know the difference between those two things.
This is what's so powerful in that moment of Serena Williams dancing during the performance. We all of us, all of our cultures have many, many stories about exes and breakups and the horrible ex, horrible breakups, all kinds of stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying their breakup was horrible or not, but you
Oh, it
have
was.
somebody who, yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to go down that particular road. I was just going to leave it more as just as a general story of horrible exes and horrible breakups. But instead of wallowing in the suffering of the horrible ex or the any of that, it was a moment of joy. Strong female standing tall by herself, dancing her best life. with a
dancing in
huge smile on her face,
dancing in
looking
a spotlight
in a
on an
spotlight
X.
on an X, just this huge smile, looking absolutely fabulous. Just a moment of pure joy
Oh yeah,
and
I will
celebration.
I allow
And
anybody to say that she didn't look her best, man. She was so
nah,
fire,
no,
so good.
they're saying that they're lying.
Yeah,
They're lying.
they're lying or
They're
they're
lying
jealous.
or they're jealous. Yeah, they have other
They're
motives.
trying to cover their
Couple
own shame.
Yeah, at that point, hit them with a couple clarifying questions. You'll find they'll hopefully they'll also find, but you'll find the truth behind their statements real fast. But that right, just even that one little moment was just the perfect case study of joy in sustaining justice, her struggle for justice in her life, and having just standing up and going, all this right here, this is it. Made
Representing
me
for her
want to get up and
community.
dance.
Rep-
You
and
know,
you will never see me crip walk. That's not one. It's not my dance. I'm not from that place. That's not my. That's not my dance. I would not do that. Plus, I don't have the knees for it. Because I can tell you
yeah,
now, young me, when before my knees got bad, I would have at least tried it. And the solitude of my room, I would have at least tried it. You have to see the joy. You have to look for that joy in all of the peoples that we are wanting to help. And especially here in Black History Month. I look at all the documentaries that are coming out. I look at the movies that usually come out this time of year, and they're about pain. There's a movie being made about by Bayard Rustin, and he's a Venn diagram of I am worried about this movie because not only was he a Black civil rights leader, but he was also queer, and he was known to be queer at the time. And in fact, one of the most powerful statements Dr. King made was they told him not to have Bayard Rustin near him during the March on Washington. And he's standing right behind him.
you put him right there. Made sure he would be in camera.
Right there.
Yeah,
Can't look at that footage without seeing him. I am concerned about this movie because I'm like, oh, they got two wells of tragedy to pull from.
hmm
They got two wells of tragedy to pull from. I'm concerned about this movie because yeah, people go through struggles. I'm not saying that you can't have a story with struggles in it. I think that's where people get distracted when we talk about celebrating the joy of a community. We're not saying ignore, not never ignore. That's falling into minstrelsy and all of the sins of our past, where we just, pulled a little layer of Jim Crow over everything and pretended everything was all right. We have our Gone with the Wind, where we pretend that the slaves are just okay with the horrible lives that we forced upon them against their will. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuine moments of joy. I'm talking about genuine moments that may punctuate a very dark life, right? My favorite rapper, and this is again my age showing, has been, and I will probably always be, Tupac Shakur, because I was coming of age and starting to understand the world and got into hip hop through musicians like him, through rappers like him. And when I think of him, the first song that comes to mind is usually Dear Mama. It's Picture Me Rolling. It's songs of joy. Sometimes it's Hennessy, right? It's songs of joy. Yeah, he had all kinds of music, and I like much every song I've ever heard of his. He did all kinds of music. But when I think about him, I think about him with that big smile. I think about his laugh. If I had to summarize Tupac, like how do you understand him? It'd be that laugh. Because whether he was angry, happy, or what, you could hear it embodied in the way he laughed. Because even angry, he laughed. And that's the memory that comes to mind for me when I think of him. Yeah, I think of the angry face and two of America's Most Wanted and all that too, right? But I think about the complexity of the person he was. And whenever we want to shave off the complexity of any group or any person, that's when we're making an idol. That's when we're making something fake. We're making something plastic because everybody had rough edges. Every group has rough edges, but every group also has, and every person has their beautiful parts as well. I don't think we need to go out of our way to say nice things about, the ruling party in the 1930s in Germany, because some people don't deserve that. And I think that some people take this line of reasoning way too far and try to say nice things about them. And, you kill 13 million people. Don't say anything nice about you ever again. Like, I just don't have to. It's not a thing I have to do. Consciously taking the time to see, to seek out, and remembering that if you are not part of any of these communities we talked about, remembering that you are a guest at best or a visitor, like you might be invited into the party, but that's not your party. Finding ways to understand and celebrate joy. It's something we forget to do in our own lives. It's actually what the current news cycle is all about, trying to get everybody to forget their joy. Why I'm paying attention, but I'm not paying attention, because the whole point of it is to get everybody depressed and confused and blind to all the things that are actually going on. You got to seek those moments of joy. You got to celebrate those moments of joy, and finding and seeing the joy of others helps to bring joy to yourself. And that's the secret of life. Like, this isn't one of those podcasts where I really want to be like, and here's the key secret to living a good life, because there aren't really that many that are true. This is one that's true. If you can't find that joy in your own life, find somebody else's joy. Go for a ride. Find somebody else's joy. What other joy can you hitch your sidecar to? Go to that party, put that song on, watch that video, so that you can be there and celebrate their joy. Because we all know that celebration and transformation are connected, right? We've talked about that a lot. That's the via-Positiva. Celebration and justice, celebration and change. Celebration brings about change. And if you're going to do it right, bringing that joy even into a serious conversation. I meant what I said at the beginning. Kendrick came out on that stage and preached scripture. Some people heard and others did not. Before the game, remember, he DM'd Curtis King and said, what's about to happen is a spiritual thing. And it was.
It was. Very much so. It's that whole thing. We were told not to hide our light under a bushel, and our joy is our light. Kendrick definitely did not hide that light under a bushel.
Father T, I will never forget Father T as long as I live. Father T was a priest that I worked with for a while back in the 90s. He just a glorious, glorious man. Used to say, we're not supposed to hide our light under a bushel, but if we're lucky, our light is a disco ball that's shining everywhere, bringing joy and happiness to everyone. But don't forget, the light hits that mirror just right, it'll set something on fire.
Fire, 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 fire.
But that's the power of joy, right? Don't hide your light under a bushel. Bring that joy out. I hope that you got what we were trying to say here. Because of some of the platforms that we're on, there are certain things that we can't just say outright, or they will punish us. And they have been for all of these Black History Month episodes. But that's just the way it is. Find that joy. Seek that joy out wherever it is, wherever you can find it. Because that joy, that celebration brings change. I'd love to know your opinions about all this. Can you let me know down in the comments? If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they won't notify us and let us know. So leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then head over to creationspaths.com, click on chat, and you can leave a comment there, and we will be able to see it and get back to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both. You can also support us through Cash App with hashtag Creations Paths. Thank you to everybody who does that. You all are amazing. You help us to keep the lights on, keep a roof over our head, and food on our table. If you don't have any money right now, or if you're not sure that we're the kind of people you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that's perfectly all right. But if anything that we've done has helped you out, or you think would help other people out, please share it with them. That helps us out more than you know. Normally, I end this with a prayer, and I'm going to do a fairly unorthodox prayer. The last song on GNX is a song called Gloria, which is a song that Kendrick Lamar wrote to his pen. And I think, if anything, we need to invoke the power of Gloria, of our creativity, of that struggle within us. So, Gloria, awaken within each of us to give us the voice to speak truth to power and to bring joy to those who need joy, to bring the thrones of the mighty down and the hearts of the downtrodden up. Amen.
Amen.